Hi, this is David Taylor, and we're going to talk about the resume. That is the second document that the hiring manager usually sees. As you know, the cover letter on top of the resume is usually the first document that the hiring manager sees. So if you haven't watched the video on the cover letter and worked that lesson, please be sure to do so. Okay, now, first, the good news. The resume is not a life summary. It is not an autobiography. It is much shorter than that. The resume is actually more of a technique than it is a document. It is a technique for matching the skills and requirements of a job description to your set of skills and responsibilities that you've had in the past. The first and foremost goal of a resume, the only thing that you have to think about, is getting the hiring manager to read past the first line. If you can't get a hiring manager to read past the first line, your resume is likely going to go into the round file, the garbage can. Why? Because the hiring manager didn't see that match between what you have and what the job requires. Now, don't let that scare you. Finding that match is actually a pretty easy thing to do. First, you make a list of all of the job responsibilities and skills that you find in that job description. Second, you make another list of the skills, responsibilities, and other past experiences you've had that match those in the job description. And third, you show that matching. You show those similarities in your cover letter and now in your resume. So this is a game of show and tell. The job description has told you what the employer is looking for, and now the cover letter and the resume show the employer that you have what he or she is looking for. So that leads us to the question, how many resumes should you have? And the answer is, as many jobs as you apply for. If you apply for 10 different jobs next month, you should have 10 different resumes. A resume not for each job, a resume for each job description, and the slight differences that you're going to find in those job descriptions from company to company, organization to organization, even though you're applying for essentially what seems to be to you the same kind of position. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about are the two main types of resumes. Type number one is the functional resume, also called the skills-based resume. The functional resume or the skills-based resume is particularly appropriate for the entry-level job seeker, the one who doesn't have a long and glorious employment history. It's also appropriate for the career changer who doesn't have a long and glorious employment history in that particular career. Why? Because the functional resume lists skills, communication skills, management skills, accounting skills, technical skills, whatever those technical skills might be. It doesn't necessarily have to say where you got them. It doesn't necessarily have to say the particular name of a company that you were at when you got them. It highlights skills and experiences that you could have gotten from life or from any job, from Taco Bell to Goldman Sachs. And the next kind of resume is the chronological resume, or sometimes called the reverse chronological resume. And this resume is for the job seeker who does have a long and glorious employment history in that particular career. So it emphasizes starting off with the present job and then going backwards in time to the various positions held. And usually it doesn't go back much more than 15 years. Experiences that are more than 15 to 20 years old are usually not that relevant, usually. So those are the two basic types of resumes that we're going to look at. There are two universal points that I want to talk about when it comes to your overall resume. And the first one is neatness counts. And by neatness, I mean leaving lots of white space The reason that you're leaving white space is that the hiring manager, as you know, is looking at hundreds, if not thousands, if they advertise the job on a job board like monster.com. The hiring manager or managers are going to be looking at hundreds and thousands of these resumes. Therefore, they're not going to be reading them word for word. They're going to be scanning them. And so skimming them. And so leaving white space allows the hiring manager's eyes to find the different sections in the resume and look at them very quickly to see if you are an appropriate candidate. So neatness, white space counts. The second thing that I want to say overall, universally about your resume, unless you are a graphic designer, do not try to design the resume yourself. Either hire somebody to design your resume or go get a template from the Office of Career Services or from the web and follow that template exactly in terms of white space, font, list, dingbats, everything else. Because according to what kind of discipline or career or job that you're in, there are probably, well, I know more than probably, there are preferences for each career, each kind of job. And you want to be sure to reflect those, whether you're in healthcare or journalism, whether you're a history teacher or a homeland security expert. Each of those careers, each of those managers in those careers is used to getting a certain kind of resume. So don't try to do it yourself. Get a template and one that is appropriate. Okay, the next thing I want to do is to look at a model resume and just kind of talk generally about the things that we see in it. So let's take a look at that model resume. First, be sure to know the type of resume preferred by the hiring manager for the position you're applying for. Some will want plain text only so they can scan it into a database. Some will want one page only. Some professions prefer a plain design. Some demand a sophisticated design. So again, to know for sure, look in the book of resume templates that you'll find in the Career Services Office. Also look for the same kinds of templates at the different template services spread throughout the web. Okay, next, let's talk about the personal info block. Now, it goes without saying that your name should be the largest and most noticeable element of the info block and of the entire page, really. 2 points to make here. First, set up a professional-sounding email address at Gmail that is devoted only to your job search. Second thing, if you have 2 addresses that you're back and forth at, can be due to being a student, being in the military, being in the middle of a move, go ahead and provide both addresses, and then the pertinent dates that apply to those addresses. Second comes the career objective. Now, this objective is the first thing below your name and info for a good reason. It confirms for the reader, the job hirer, the job manager, at a glance, that you are applying for the exact position he or she advertised. And so that makes this objective statement one of the key places where you must customize your resume for the different positions you're applying for. In the objective statement, and I cannot emphasize this enough, use the exact job title of the position that you found in that job description and that you are applying for. And then after you have used that exact job title, then be very specific about what you can do for the company when you're in that position based upon your skills and accomplishments. And you do that in one sentence. Okay, now in a functional resume, the next thing that you'll see is the skills section. Here are the things to keep in mind. First, keep it a bullet list, nice and clean, nice and short. Second, support any general statement with a specific example of that skill. and begin each example with a strong verb. For instance, you list database programming as a skill. Well, connected directly beneath that claim, you're going to provide support. Now notice that the applicant did those things while in a subordinate position, and that company and position are not mentioned in the resume. Too much detail. The hiring manager doesn't have time for it. You don't want to detract that person from your most important goal, seeing the match between you and what's advertised in the job description. Now, when you have the interview, if you make it to the interview process, you better be prepared to back up those skills that you listed with specific job titles and specific companies and specific dates. But don't worry about that in the resume. You've got those skills. They're yours. You experienced them. You actually did them. So put them there. Next, after the skills would come your experience. Now, don't worry if you lack that extensive employment history. Virtually any job you've been successful at can be analyzed in a way that highlights the fact that you are dependable, hardworking, innovative, problem-solving, and good with customers and with staff. Those are universal skills that you can have developed in any job that you've been a part of. So please keep that in mind. Now, the thing after that, education. Even if you have not yet finished your undergraduate degree, or if you're working on a graduate degree, list any degree in progress prominently and simply put expected in front of the month and year. In other words, you list it as you would any other degree, except you put the two words expected in front of the month and year. Also, don't forget that almost every job has a series of training programs and seminars that you were made to attend. You maybe even got certificates of completion of those. Add those in. So please don't leave out anything in your first draft. Let us see it, and we'll help you with the second draft. And references, when making your first contact with an employer, usually you do one of two things. You either leave off references because it's not time for them yet, or if you have room at the bottom of the page, you can put in references available upon request. But your references are usually not going to be asked for until you go through an interview and you are a viable job candidate, one of the top 3 or maybe top 5 for that job. That's when the references are looked at to help sort you out. The last thing I want to say is, how long should my resume be? When I answer that question, it should be exactly as long as the one being called for in the job description. If the job description seems to call for more than one page, it should be more than one page. But if you can get it all on one page, along with a one-page cover letter, that will be nice and tidy, and the hiring managers will appreciate it. Okay, good luck on your resumes, and after you get them done, please show them to as many people as you can and get feedback on them. Good luck with it.